Welcome to the Hockey Writers Union Junction, a weekly show from our Columbus Blue Jackets insider, Mark Scheig, bringing you the latest news, rumors, trades, player grades, game results, and much more. From training camp to the playoffs, from draft day to the trade deadline, he covers everything that happens with the Jackets. So get ready. It's time for another get-together at Union Junction.
Hello, hockey fans. Welcome back to Union Junction. Mark with you. Nick's got the week off. Great to have you with us. It is March the 10th. Only 11 more days till the trade deadline. We figure this would be a great time to check in with one of the better reporters out there who closely covers the Columbus Blue Jackets. And if you follow him on Twitter for any length of time, you know he's at Jackets Insider. Jeff Svoboda is joining us this week. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Not so bad.
So you guys landed in New York nice and safely.
Yep. Nice, easy flight. One of the rare road games, Blue Jackets coming off a 5-game homestand, which was nice to have. But back on the road, get to check out UBS Arena for the first time. So intrigued to see what that's like. We've seen some Islanders hockey in some interesting buildings over the years. So this will be a new one. So we'll see what this is about. And then back to Nationwide for a couple.
Yeah, back to Nationwide for the Wild and for the Golden Knights. And then another one gamer to Ottawa, and then a couple more, and then another home game before the trade deadline. And that's just it, Jeff. It seems like the Blue Jackets have had a ton of games, like a bunch of 3 and 4s. You know, yes, they're at home now, but the road game, but then at home now. Do you feel like that the recent performances of this team have had to do with the energy, being tired, having so many games condensed like this? Is that what you see in your site?
I think we saw that Monday night. We say we played a lot of games, keeping the day straight right now. Exactly. It could be a little bit of a chore. But I would say that that's what we saw at the start of that game Monday against the Maple Leafs, being down 3-0 in the first period. Shot attempts I think were 31-10 in favor of Toronto. That just felt like a team that did not have any energy. They had played so much hockey previous to that in a very short amount of time. Then, you have the Saturday night ceremony with with Rick Nash and Nick Foligno being back and everything that went on Saturday night. And then on top of that, a phenomenal hockey game that went the distance. You can just tell they were struggling a little bit on Monday. But then I think the thing that was a really interesting thing was that they found the gas pedal, which kind of surprised me because I usually, at least with this team, when we've seen up to this point this year, when they don't have it, they don't have it. And there's a couple games you can think of when that was the case. And for them to come back and make a game out of that Toronto game, I think was impressive. So I think there have been some issues with that where it's just natural. That Carolina game was one of them, a couple weeks ago where they beat Florida and then had to go to Carolina, play back-to-back against 2 of the best teams in the league, and it just wasn't there. But I've actually been kind of surprised by how much energy they have had, all things considered, with how difficult the schedule has been from a standpoint of the number of games they've played and the difficult opponents they've played. The fact they've been able to hang in there and play pretty good hockey still, even though they haven't quite gotten the results, the fact that they've been able to at least hang in there, I think has been impressive. It has been a step, and that's what Brad Larson said after the game against Toronto. He told the team that again today as well at practice, was that it was a step for them to get back in that Leafs game and overcome, the fatigue and hang with a team that's as good as Toronto. So I would say I'm actually kind of surprised by how they're hanging in there. But at the same time, you look around the league and everybody else had these reschedule, things as well. And it's something that's just going on in the game right now where a lot of hockey to be played down the stretch. So it's hitting everybody and it'll hit teams at different times. And I think we've seen the Jackets have to battle through it.
And Jeff, it's something I'm curious about. And I don't know if Larson has ever addressed this. I haven't personally heard it. Maybe you have. And I think Nashville comes to mind that did this. They had the Predators go away for 2 straight days, so 2 days off in a row. And I know that that's kind of an unusual move, but would you think that Larson would ever consider that, given so many games, to have that rest factor back in play?
I think you'd have to look at it just depending on the schedule and how much hockey they played. Well, first of all, I've got the schedule on my phone here, but you don't have a whole lot of times where you actually have 2 days off back to back at this point anyway. So I'd be curious off the top of my head. I don't know how often that's going to come up here, but it looks like it does happen a couple times. Maybe you could see that happening. I think it's sort of just as a read of the room and how the team feels. He did, today basically told the team at the start of practice, it's not going to be a long practice, but we're going to go hard. So I think that might be the move is get the work in you need to get, but keep them short rather than, we've seen some practices this year go hour 15. I mean, I'd say an hour is kind of normal. Maybe keep some of these to high intensity 30, 45-minute practices and just get in what they need to get and go from there. But yeah, you say you just kind of have to, it's all by feel. You schedule it out and you have your schedule, but we've seen them, make a number of changes so far where they've taken practices off the board. In this last 2 or 3 week span, there's been a number of times where they were scheduled to practice and did not, which is kind of, we saw Torts do that a lot down the stretch too, is, just reading the energy level of your team and what you need. And so he certainly has been responsive so far, and we'll see what needs to be done as they go from here on out.
Absolutely. And you think about starting with the Islander game tonight, you're talking 6 games in the next 10 days. That is a ton of hockey, including 2, 3, and 4 stretches. So I'd be really curious to see load management.
And I'm looking at the schedule on my phone here. I'm looking at it. 5 of these 6 games are against teams that are in playoff position. So, it's not getting easy. It's not easy at all. You're putting in a lot of hard work in these games. And so, yeah, it makes you think, at some point here, you said we've already seen practices come off the board, and there very well may be more of them as we go.
Yeah, Islanders and Ottawa are not, but the other 4
the Islanders are not. Yeah, 4 of 6, yeah. And then Pittsburgh after that is the next game. So that's one there. It's a hard stretch. There's no doubt about it. That's
and then they got to go to Winnipeg. They got to go to Minnesota after that. And then they have back-to-back with the Islanders, Boston back-to-back. So you're going to find out a lot about this team as we move forward here. And Jeff, you made reference to this just a little bit ago. Just wanted to get your reflections on both the Rick Nash ceremony and the Nick Foligno coming back home. Obviously, very emotional on all fronts. Job well done on the ceremony. And then, the way they welcome Nick Foligno back. Just your overall thoughts on both.
I thought it was great. I actually had a few people kind of reach out to me and say it was Nick kind of getting the short end of the stick by not being coming back on a night where there was more time to kind of spend more time on Nick Foligno. But if you saw his interviews either before the game or after the game, it seemed like he was excited to be there. He knows what Rick Nash meant to the Blue Jackets franchise, having been a captain of this team. And I think he wanted to be there for that. I think it was incredible to have that moment where you had Rick Nash dropping a puck for Boone Jenner and Nick Foligno, the last 2 captains who followed him. I thought that was a really cool moment. And so, Nick still got his due. Maybe the focus wasn't on him as much as it would have been in a different situation. But at the end of the day, to have everyone there like that, I think it was a really cool thing. And Nick certainly felt the love from the Blue Jackets fans, whether there was that one moment during the ceremony where the camera kind of panned to Nick Foligno on the bench as he was listening, and a roar went up from the crowd. And then certainly when he was honored as well during the media timeout, you could tell it was really cool to see just how much the Columbus fan base recognizes Nick still and everything he did for this franchise. So that was pretty cool. But obviously the main event was the Rick Nash ceremony. And I thought it really came off without a hitch. If you looked at it, some great speakers. Rick certainly gave a great speech. It seemed like it was done in a first-class way from top to bottom by the organization. And certainly a lot of people in the organization put a lot of time and effort into making sure that it was done the right way. And it sure seemed to me like it was. And so great memories. I think the fans were great. The way that they welcomed back Ken Hitchcock and even Doug McLean, who didn't have the most success here, but certainly if you look at how much he cared about Columbus, I think that was very much the case. And if you look at Doug McLean's legacy at the end of the day, the 2 best things he did, I think, were A, drafting Rick Nash, which he even admitted, he wished more of the on-ice things would have worked out. But the Rick Nash thing certainly did. And then B, when Doug came in, one of the things that he really focused on was making sure hockey grew in Columbus and putting in the time and effort to grow the grassroots level in the fan base. And he talked about how proud he was to see how far it's come over the years. And so part of that effort was Sean Corrali, had played for Boston, plays for the Blue Jackets now, narrated the video that talked about how far Columbus hockey has come. The proof was in the pudding there. So, I think it was good to see the way that everybody was welcomed back. Certainly Aaron Johnson, basically turning it into a roast was a really cool moment as well. Yeah. So it had a little bit of everything. And so I think it was a really well done thing, an excellent ceremony. The gifts were pretty cool as well. I'm sure Rick's going to enjoy those.
Right.
So all the stops were pulled out, but at the end of the day, it seemed as though whether you looked around the hockey world or just the people that were there, everyone had a great time. And it was a ceremony befitting someone like Rick Nash, who, really say, when so many people said it, when you think of Columbus Blue Jackets hockey, certainly the first, 10 to 15 years. And even now, with him being back in the organization, you think of Rick Nash. And so he deserved it. And it came out to be a memorable night for sure in the arena, and a great game as well. Too bad the Blue Jackets weren't able to win it. And it kind of, the only thing that sucked for me was it went to a shootout, and it just felt like such a bad, lame way to end that game.
Seriously.
Such a phenomenal hockey game. It deserved an overtime winner, even if it would have been Boston. I thought it was kind of a tough way to end that game, but a record crowd certainly got their money's worth in Nationwide Arena. I would say that.
They definitely did. I think the big takeaway for me in adding to that is low key. Think about now the future, the job that Rick Nash has as director of player development and telling people how great Columbus is. And then, this was on national TV on NHL Network. So the nation got to see how the Blue Jackets conduct business. And I think it's a sign that, if you're going to come to play here, this is what we're going to do. This is how we operate. And I think that they've taken visible steps in my mind to indicate that Columbus can be a destination, is a destination. And, if you come here, our focus is on winning and taking care of you. And I just think that was from top to bottom, just job well done. The fact that they thanked all the people that were there from the beginning for all 20 years that helped contribute to this, I couldn't help but just think how much of an impact that's going to make in the future too. As eventually there'll be other jerseys retired and stuff like that. But, to honor him like that, I just wonder how many people thought that they would ever see that given how it ended.
Yeah, no, you're right. And that is an interesting aspect of the whole Nash scenario is how it ended, because, obviously he was traded from Columbus. That's one of those things that JD made mention of it during his speech about how Rick left and ended up coming back. But I guess that's the business. And it was one of those things where, bygones are kind of bygones there. And I think, Rick made very clear, and these are not just words, he said them in the ceremony, but if you look at the fact that he did come back to Columbus, Ohio, he is working for the Blue Jackets, how this, at the end of the day, even though, everyone I think wishes they had won more hockey games during that whole time that he was here, certainly some great memories of the first playoff bid and him clinching that and things like that. But, everyone would say that they wish they'd won more games. Doug would say that, Hitch would say that, Rick would say that. But, for everything that happened, this became home for Rick Nash, and he's put his money where his mouth is, coming back, being a part of this organization. The organization has responded in kind. And you're right, it does go a long way, because when you think about it too, you think of the Nick Folignos and the Cam Atkinsons of the world. Certainly there's a pretty strong alumni base in Columbus, and I think it's going to just get even stronger because Nick can't wait to come back. Cam still has the battery here, talks about coming back. You're starting to see a pretty strong culture of what the Blue Jackets mean to the players and the other way around. It's a two-way street where the organization looks out for those who've been a part of it. We've seen Aaron Johnson now come back as well. Derek Dorsett, Mark Letestu, you can go down the list of guys that have been hired the last couple of years to be part of the front office. The organization looks out for those players, and those players do the same thing for the organization. So it's part of building that culture and what hockey means in a place is those kind of things. And we're definitely starting to see it in Columbus.
Well, circle April 7th on the calendar. That's when Cam Atkinson comes back to Nationwide Arena. It's his only trip in, so that should be an emotional night for those that go. Jeff Svoboda joining us. He's Jackets Insider, talking all things Blue Jackets here on Union Junction this week. And Jeff, Boone Jenner leads the team in scoring. I'm not sure how many fans would have called that at this point in the season, given that Voracek was there, given Patrik Laine, and he's starting to get hot, but to me, he just seems like I've never seen him skate as fast as he has. I feel like that he's really prioritized that, and he's taken advantage of the role he's given as the team's top center. Like, just what are your thoughts on him, and where do you feel like that this has come from?
That's a great question. I don't know if he's been energized by the captaincy. I don't know if he just had, Boone's a guy that's never not going to put in the work. But what, coming in knowing just how important he was going to be to this team, was there an off-season aspect to it? Or is it just sometimes you just get in those scenarios where everything seems to go your way and it just builds on itself? Because remember, Boone gets off to a hot start and it's just kept going from there. And sometimes, I remember the old baseball analogy of like, if you're hitting, 150, you get 3 weeks into the season, not only you're hitting 150, but every time you walk up to the plate, you look up the scoreboard and it tells you you're hitting 150. That's hard to get out of. And it's the opposite too. If you walk up, 3 weeks into the season, you're hitting 350. you feel like you look up those numbers and feel like you're going to get hit every time. And I think that's maybe the same for hockey, is that you do have things go your way early in the season and you feel like, hey, it's my year. Let's keep these good vibes going. And then they just do. The confidence is there and those types of things. And so maybe that's part of it. It'd be hard to say exactly what it is. I think the opportunity that he's been given helps a lot. I mean, if you're going to play with players like Patrik Laine and Gus Nyquist and Jake Voracek, however you want to pronounce his name, Oliver Bjorkstrand, et cetera, et cetera. Like if you're going to play with the best players on the team, you have the opportunity to add up to those points. And I think it's, you look at how well he's done on the power play this year and the production there. He's kind of the perfect guy for that net front, to where with the shooting skill that you have out of guys like Laine and Zach Werenski and Bjorkstrand, Boone's that perfect guy to be at the front, whether to tap in rebounds or deflect shots or screen the goalie. It seems like things are just him. He's been put in a situation to succeed, and he's had the confidence, and it's worked out for him. So maybe you keep having put your socks on the same way every day, and keep having the same pregame meal or whatever it is. But sometimes it just comes down to opportunity and confidence as well, and that's probably the bigger answer. But it certainly has been, not to use a pun here, but it has been a boon to the Blue Jackets because figuring out that center position at the top was a key question coming into this year. And they've certainly got the production that they've wanted out of somebody, and that's come in the form of Boone. So good for him. And it's for a guy who, probably came into this year and gets the captaincy and is wondering, how is this all going to go? Been a leader before, but it's a new role. It's a lot easier to lead when you're performing. And I think he's performed to the point that it's made the leadership easier too. So it's working out for him kind of all directions, I guess you could say, for Boone up to this point.
So what you're trying to say, Jeff, is that Boone is really generating the offense this year.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to say.
Pun usage, never a dull moment with it, ever.
Exactly.
So quick hitter. Patrik Laine's upside to you is fill in the blank.
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, upside is it's immense, obviously. Yeah. That's the funny thing is, if you look at his history, he's still 23 years old, and we've heard people say this before, but it feels like he's been in the league for forever, and he has been in the league for forever. I mean, he's played a number of seasons in the NHL, and he still probably could keep getting better. I mean, we've seen a better version of Patrik Laine this year than certainly we saw last year. I would not profess to be someone that watched a ton of Winnipeg hockey in past years, so I don't know how what we're seeing now maybe compares to when he was playing his best in Winnipeg. Yeah. But he's a guy that it seems like success begets success with him, that when he's really feeling it, he's really feeling it. And when he's struggling a bit, I think the frustration sets in. It's not lack of effort. It's just frustration. And I think frustration was the word last year. And this year we're seeing it build on itself, maybe a little bit like with Boone, where when it's going in, it's a lot easier for it to go in the next time. So, I don't know what number he could reach as far as goals in a season. I mean, right now he's got, I think 16 and 17 games or 18 games or 16 and 17, I believe. So,
that's right.
I mean, that's a pretty long stretch to have a goal a game. So, that goes to show you that this is a guy that could probably, if everything lines up in a year, could probably score 50. And so it's crazy to think about how much better he could keep getting because there is still that room to grow at 23 years old. So, yeah, pretty impressive, I would say.
Absolutely. And Jeff Svoboda, Jackets Insider, joining us, and just got a couple more for him. But before we get to that, as fans, make sure you got our show here. We've got other shows out there as well with a bunch of other teams. We have the Morning Skate newsletters, and make sure that you click subscribe. Make sure that you like. You will not miss any of the shows that come out. A lot of content coming at you daily here at the Hockey Writer, so just make sure you don't miss out on that. Now that we got the business out of the way, Jeff, the defense and the goaltending is certainly something that if anyone has watched for any length of time all season, it's been a struggle. They give up the most shots in the league. Elvis Merzlikins has not played up to standards. He's been in and out of the lineup. We know Korpisalo has been in and out of the lineup. So it's been hard for them to get consistency. But I wanted to get your take on, have you seen improvement defensively as of late, even despite still giving up a ton of shots? The strength of schedule still there, playing a lot of really tough teams, but are you seeing evidence that this young group is coming along in that area?
I think I am. And the biggest thing for me is there were times at the start of this year, not as bad as last year, but there were, the first probably half of this season where there were times where the Blue Jackets just could not get out of their own zone, especially against the really good teams in the league. I mean, Carolina, that New Year's Eve game or New Year's Day game, if you look back at that one, I mean, I didn't have the advanced stats or the player tracking / puck tracking numbers at that time. But like, boy, if I'd been at that game, I would imagine the possession for Carolina and the offensive zone possession would have been obscene, basically, if you're a Blue Jackets fan. So, the high pressure teams, I think, really made it hard on them early in the season. And I think we've seen improvement in that regard to where certainly, any game you're going to have stretches where you're in your own zone. But there hasn't been the just complete inability to get out of the zone that we saw at times early this season. We saw it, frankly, for a lot of last year. And so I think that stands for improvement. If you look at the raw numbers, I mean, the shots are still there. The goals against are still there. I think when I was looking the other day, they were the only team in the league since the calendar year flip. So the only team in the league in 2022 to have given up more than 100 goals. And so, I mean, the goals are going in a lot, and that's, that is real. There's no arguing that. But I think the improvement has been there. And people have asked me throughout the season, what's wrong with the defense? What's wrong with the defense? Well, it's youth. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. The best defensemen in the league generally, from a defensive standpoint, are guys that have done it for a long time, because it's hard. It's the more nuanced part of the game, playing on the defensive side. And if you look at, the guys that are out there, certainly Zach Werenski's been in the league for a long time, but this is a guy that, he's taking on a new role as a number one defenseman. So there's still a bit of a transition there. And if you go down the lineup, I mean, their next 6 most experienced defenseman is Vladislav Gavrikov, who we love, but is still in his 3rd NHL season and is, I think, 24, 25 years old still. And then he goes from the experience level, goes down from there. Guys like Andrew Peeke. I mean, this is Andrew Peake's first long run at it, and he's playing first pair of minutes. And he has not been perfect, but I think at the beginning of the year, if you'd said you've gotten what you've gotten out of Andrew Peeke, you'd be pretty happy with that. But this is still a 23-year-old guy playing first pair of minutes at the NHL level. So there's going to be growing pains there. Carlson, or not, I was thinking Boquist and Bean are guys that, first round picks, but they haven't played a lot of NHL hockey coming into this season. Gabriel Carlson has not played a lot of NHL hockey. Gene Kukin's been in and out of the lineup. Gavin Bayreuther had only played a handful of games before this year. So it's probably what you're going to get with a group that's that young. So certainly it's not all defensemen, but I think it's fair to expect a little bit of growing pains there just because of how young the defense has been. And then you've had the injuries at goalie. Tarasov getting hurt hasn't helped. Korpisalo being in and out has not helped. Elvis, I think, has not played as well as he would have liked to. I don't think it's all on him, but there's certainly been some goals that he would probably want back at times throughout this season. I think that, he's a guy I think that thinks he can steal games, and he just hasn't done that a ton this year. But I think that he's probably produced about the way you would expect a goalie to produce, given, the number of shots that have come at him and things like that. So it's kind of a team effort in that regard, but I think that, at the end of the day, it's one of those things that it's going to get better. This was a learning year coming into this year. Everyone expected this to be, with so many new guys and so many new players and new roles. I mean, even the returning players are in new roles pretty much as you go up and down the lineup. Entirely new leadership crew, things like that. Everybody was going to have to get used to doing new things and taking on bigger share of the pie. And that's always hard. And so I think that's what's gone into it. And for them to be at where they are right now, to have won as many games as they have up to this point in the season and still be on the fringes of the playoff race when everyone in the world thought they'd be in last place, it's a successful season. And there's things that need to get ironed out, but I think they've really shown progress as this year has gone on, is what I would say.
Absolutely. One last one for you, Jeff, before we get to our lightning round, is how different is this going to team look come trade deadline day? There's a couple pending UFAs out there, a couple other names tossed out in rumors, careful at your own risk of what you want to believe, but is there a possibility that this team could look significantly different after the deadline, or maybe just a couple moves here or there?
I think the possibility is there because it's the trade deadline and you never know what might happen. It's always funny to see what happens at the deadline because teams get desperate and there's always teams that, feel like they have to make a move. And if you feel like you've got a team that can contend for a Stanley Cup, like you look at the trade deadline and say, hey, we can give up a lot for something, but at the end of the day, we've got this chance. We got to try to make it work. So, I think Max Domi, obviously being a UFA, I mean, he's the guy I think is one that will get talked about the most. Yep. And I think that makes a lot of sense. If you're a team that's looking to bolster secondary scoring and looking to add to your second or third line, Max Domi has shown this year that he's an energy guy. He can certainly be a physical presence when he wants to as well, an intensity guy, and he can score. So I would say that teams would certainly be looking for someone like that as we come down the pipe here. And then it just sort of depends on offers from there. I mean, I don't think the Blue Jackets would actively try to trade Gus Nyquist, but if a team that thinks that they need a guy like that comes to them and offers them the world, you've got to consider that offer, something like that. So, there was a rumblings about Jack Roslovic and Alexander Texier earlier this year. I don't know how much stock I put in either of those things because those are young players you could possibly should maybe consider foundational players. And so I'm not betting either of those guys gets traded, but NHL GMs, when they see young players with offensive upside, you never know what they might offer. So I think my guess is it's not a tremendously different team, but it all just depends on what teams kind of offer. And I know so many teams are in a cap crunch that might make it hard, but you just never know. Teams, as we've watched the NHL over the last number of years, we've learned that teams can get creative and figure things out if they want to. Mm-hmm. And so whether the cap situation is what it is around the league, at the end of the day, if teams want to add that extra piece, they'll move things to make it happen. And so that puts a team like the Blue Jackets, maybe puts them in a driver's seat position where teams will come to them and say, we want X, Y, or Z. And if we can make it happen, we're going to give up a lot for it. So would not be surprised if some of those things happen because it is the trade deadline. But my guess is it's not going to be as dramatic as maybe you would have seen a couple months ago where this team was really kind of going to the skid. My sense is it's not going to be a tremendously active deadline, but like I said, you never know because it's the trade deadline and teams get desperate, as they should, because you win a cup, banners hang forever, right?
It hangs forever. And what do the Blue Jackets have that a lot of teams don't have? And you mentioned it, it's that cap space, because that's going to be the biggest weapon, and they could get involved, whether it be draft picks, whether it be players. I just feel like that they have an open canvas and there's a lot of possibilities. And you're right, they might sit back a little bit or their opportunity might come up. And that's what will make them the wild card and fun. So let's do the lightning round real quick. 5 quick questions. Just, we do this every week on the show, me and Nick, but this time, since you're here, figured let's give you a shot with this. So question 1, will the Blue Jackets acquire another first round pick by the trade deadline?
I think yes, because of what I just said. Teams will get desperate. And if you think you're one piece away, we saw it last year with guys like Nick Foligno and David Savard, teams will do that. So I would not be surprised at all. And because of that, I'm going to say yes. I'm
going to say yes too. Exactly. You said you laid it out perfectly. Don't have to add to that. So will they weaponize cap space
then? I want to say yes, but I mean, we've heard this for a while and they haven't quite been able to pull it off yet. So I guess I'm waiting with bated breath, but if you have it and not many teams have it and you're looking to be active, then that's, as you said, that's an option there. So I guess I'm trending toward yes, but I'm only like 75% of the way there.
I'll say yes. And I'll add that if you can get draft picks in 23 on top of this year, you do it. And that's an affordable price to get an extra second, an extra third rounder. And we know the track record that Kekalainen and staff have in the scouting game. So might be the year to pull the trigger. Number 3, will Kent Johnson play a game with the Blue Jackets this season?
I say yes. I'd be surprised. I'd be more surprised if he does not. So, I think he does. I think there's enough time there after Michigan season ends. I think he wants to do it. I think they'll want him to do it. I think it'll work out that way.
I say no, but similar path to Zach Werenski. I wonder if they put him on the Monsters first and then do it, but we'll see. Number 4, Boone Jenner finishes the season as the points leader. Yes or no?
Ooh, what's the numbers right now?
He's at 44.
Okay.
And I think it's 43 and 42 right underneath him with Voracek and Laine in some order.
And then Bjorkstrand's at 40. I'm going to say no, not because of anything against Boone, but just because of the guys behind him. I mean, we're seeing how Voracek's racking up assists. Bjorkstrand's hot right now. Laine's hot right now. I just think there's such stiff competition there that it ends up going in a different direction.
I agree with you on that. I ultimately think Laine will be the one. Now, my last question is on him. Will Patrik Laine get to 40 goals this season? He needs 18 in his last 25 games to do so.
I'm going to say no, because that's hard to do. Even as good as he has been this last little stretch, that would mean he would have, I'm going to try to do math in my head very quickly. So he's 18.
Needs 18. Yep.
He's got 16 in his last 17. So that would be 34 goals. in 42 games. It's just hard to stay that hot. It is. So I'm going to say no. If anybody really can do it, it's him. But that's an awful lot of goals in a short time span. So I would go with no on that one, just because of the numbers that would require, but not because of his talent, because we know he can do it. But I just think that's a pretty big ask at that point.
I have him at 35. I'm right there with you. Fans, make sure that you follow Jeff. Does a great job covering the team at everything that travels with them. One of the best follows in Blue Jackets land you can have. He's at Jackets Insider. Jeff, really appreciate you taking the time out in New York to join us here, and enjoy the games, and be curious to see what happens here in the next couple of weeks.
That's for sure. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeff. Fans, have a great week. We'll see you next week here on Union Junction. It'll be our trade deadline special. So till then, take care.